team, as well as the delegation from the entity, in this case SAPO, our participants on the platform, including Ms Graham-Maré, on whose petition we are gathered here today. Fellow South Africans who are following deliberations of this committee, you are also greeted. Honorable members, I will, without a waste of time, really just deal with the formalities of the meeting, more of a reminder of the rules of engagement on this platform. First and foremost, just for this meeting to be orderly and for it to run smoothly from the position of chairing the meeting, it's just to remind ourselves that at all times, our mics should be muted, video camera switched off if you are not on the platform as recognized by the chairperson to speak. At the time that you would want to speak, you would use a gadget to raise the hand. Where I'm unable to see that, the committee support will assist me in that regard. And in that score, that the hand will be recognized. And once allowed by the chair, you then unmute the mic, as well as switch on your video camera so that the viewers home could also follow who is speaking. But in a situation where there may be connectivity challenges, you would advise the meeting that you may be experiencing that in that score would allow you to proceed without your video camera on in a way that maximizes the bandwidth. And we'll be able to hear you in that regard. This would also be the case for those who may be losing network or rejoining the meeting, that at all times ensure that as you rejoin, you ensure that the mic is muted and the video camera is off, as this may distract a speaker that may be on the platform due to background sounds, as microphones are quite sensitive. I take it that we are clear on that first part. Second part relates to a point of orders that members may want to raise, that in a case of point of order or any point that a member would want to raise, you would raise your hand first and be recognized by the chair. Only at the time that the chairperson would have given you an opportunity to speak, that you would unmute your mic. We're also advised, honorable members, that we do avoid unnecessary point of orders that can lead to the collapse of the meeting on this platform. But I can guarantee that we would always give an opportunity to any member who would want to speak. However, you need to be recognized by the chair. Unmuting the mic without the chair having recognized you and allowed you to speak would be breaking off the rules. In that score, I would, as I said, without waste of time, just outline how we are going to proceed from here. I know that we have the Deputy Minister, but I'll just deal with the formality of apologies, just for record. But we will take first, in terms of presentations, 15 minutes presentation from Ms Graham-Maré to present, as would be dealing with the petition as referred to us by the Speaker to the ATC of the 6th of December 2021. Thereafter, we would then have the response from the department, as this petition would have been duly shared with the department and the entity to be able to respond. In that score, the Deputy Minister will then be afforded an opportunity to do the overview on that response, as well as taking the committee into confidence on any matter, as this petition may just be one area, but as honorable members would know, this committee has been handling the matters that relates to repositioning of SAPO given its current challenges. So we'll give that. And thereafter, the Deputy Minister will then start the counting of the minutes allocated to the response, and will allocate 20 minutes for the response, and from there would then allow members to engage the matter, as would then wrap up and get to items of the committee, which will be approval of outstanding minutes. Please, once again, feel welcomed. This meeting is now officially opened. I will then check with Ajira for purposes of record if there are apologies that we need to record as the committee. Ajira?
Morning, Chairperson. Apologies for the Minister who has another commitment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ajira. So I thought you'll also raise the point that Honorable Mbele would have raised on the committee platform. I think it will only be fair that we just clarify, Honorable Mbele, so that we deal with this point now, that indeed from the committee support, the members may have not been ATC'd, meaning that their official participation would get to be a problem from a point of quorum in that score. So it would still take you to be the member, and that once ATC'd, there will then be members of the committee. However, they can participate as any other member who gets to come into the committee who's not a member of the committee. I would not want to say observer status, but it does happen that members do attend committees, but of course they would not vote on matters on the table as they are not members of the committee. And from where one is sitting, there's really no matter to vote on in the way we have been operating in this committee, except to listen to all voices represented in the committee in the best way to serve the interests of South Africans. So in that score, we will introduce them, yes, but they are just attending, not really forming part of the quorum until they are ATC'd accordingly. I hope that clarifies, Honorable Mbele. So you can do that brief introduction so that when they participate in the items, we do know if they start. Honorable Mbele.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you and to the colleagues and everyone on the platform. Yes, I did think it was important for clarity and as a courtesy as parts of the coming transition to introduce my colleagues who will be coming onto the committee as members following a portfolio reallocation in our caucus. So just very briefly, it's for the sake of the other members of the committee to be introduced to Honorable Soli Malati, as well as Honorable Tulufelo Mutsiri, who will be coming on board the committee officially as soon as it's ATC'd, but obviously for the purposes of substantive sort of coming to grips and coming on stream, they'll be joining the committee meetings from today onwards. Thanks, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if my colleagues...
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Shazat, we didn't even see them. so that we know if it's them when they raise their hands, because there are also other people on the platform. Okay, can we then proceed? I think as we proceed, would then go to the first item. As I said, that item would be 15 minutes presentation, and thereafter immediately would then take the Deputy Minister to do an overview, as there would be a response. This will also present an opportunity for Ms. Graham-Maré to also introduce herself and then introduce the petition. Over to you, Ms. Graham-Maré.
Good morning, Chairperson, and thank you very, very much for the very warm welcome. Before I start, I would just like to say that Hajira has just been phenomenal in supporting me in getting to this point. So I'd very much just like to thank her for the help and assistance she's given me in preparing for today's presentation. And I would like to thank the committee for dealing with this so quickly. I have good news and bad news as I go through my presentation, but I'll go more into that as we progress. So I am the constituency head for Dr. Beyers Naude local municipality, which is in the Eastern Cape. This municipality was amalgamated in 2016 out of 3 existing municipalities, Kamdeboer, Ekwezi and Beyers. Kamdeboer consists of Graaff-Reinet, New Bethesda, Aberdeen. Ekwezi consists of Jansenville and Klipplaat and Waterford, which is a settlement. And Beyers consists of Stateleville, Willemore and Rietbron. So the amalgamation occurred in 2016. It has been fraught with all sorts of complications. We are now the 3rd largest municipality geographically in the country, with 29,000 square kilometers of area to be covered. It's a very rural municipality. It's a very poor municipality. We are one of 7 local municipalities in the Srts district municipality, but we make up half the municipal size geographically. So there are a lot of issues that we face. The municipal population is only 81,000, and of that population, at least 51% are indigent. So it's been a very, very tough transition. There's not enough money, and it's a very, very poor farming community with very, very high unemployment. So the Jansenville Post Office itself services Jansenville, Klipplaat and Waterford. Waterford, as I say, is just a little small settlement. Jansenville population is just over 5,000. The Klipplaat population is just under 3,000. But the Klipplaat population, Jansenville has some formal businesses, so the unemployment rate isn't as high there as it is in Klipplaat. Klipplaat has, they reckon, an 80% unemployment rate. There are no formal businesses. We've got spaza shops, and that's about the sum total of any form of economy that's happening there. Most people get casual work on farms, and that's about the sum total of the work opportunities and CWP and potentially EPWP programs. And the reason I'm explaining this to you is that Jansenville is the economic hub of the area, and it's 33 kilometers from Klipplaat. And in order for anything to happen, the people from Klipplaat have to pay 80 Rand round trip to go to Jansenville to conduct their business. Klipplaat is poverty-stricken, and it was a declared poverty site by the Department of Social Development. So it's a massively, massively poor area. And obviously grants are the major source of income in that area. So the issues we raised in the petition was, one of the biggest problems we had is that there's a lack of planning around money. So periodically, the Jansenville Post Office runs out of money. And because there's been no mechanism in place to notify people, we have a case where people from Klipplaat are then traveling. Look, it applies to people coming from Waterford, it applies to people coming from farms, but predominantly the issues have been raised around people from Klipplaat. So they pay for transport, or they take transport with a view to paying it on the return trip. So the 80 Rand will then be paid on the return trip. They then arrive in Jansenville and there's no money in the post office. And they have no means of getting home. So we've had cases of elderly people who've then had to sleep on the streets because they can't get back to their homes in Klipplaat. The police have been great, and obviously we don't advertise this, but every now and then police have actually been forced to take people back to Klipplaat purely because they've had no other means of getting home. So this is a huge problem that we have, and it's not just in Jansenville. We have the same in our other areas in Willowmore and Stateleville, where we've got people coming from outer areas to try and get their grants and arriving when there's no money. So the lack of planning around money has been a big problem. Also, the inadequate notification mechanism. So in the past, there's been no way to alert people to the fact that the post office has run out of money. So we can't stop people from arriving. So that obviously causes huge issues. And as you well know, in every town, in every part of this country, the queues for the SRD grant are massive. And that's obviously then creating a problem because you've got people literally sitting on the pavement all day with no access to food, no access to water, no access to toilets. And that's having a huge impact on the community at large. We also got a number of complaints. You know, small communities, everybody knows everybody's business. So a lot of issues were raised around the lady who is in charge of the Jansenville Post Office. She actually lives in Klipplaat. But there were a lot of allegations made that she wasn't opening and closing within the operating times of the post office. They were closing without notifying people. So people would arrive and there'd just be a sign saying, I'm you know, on sick leave or whatever. And that's it. The post office was closed for the day. There were allegations that she and her husband were running a shop, sort of, we call them skoppers in the Eastern Cape. It's a loan shark business. And that as people were getting their grants, they were coming out and her husband was demanding money and also selling alcohol from the car park. And then there were also allegations around the way people were being treated. We also heard that there were times when her husband was inside behind the counter in the post office and operating there illegally. So all of these, and these allegations were made to our councillors, they were made to me. I had no evidence of them, but obviously we need to take allegations that we are hearing repeatedly seriously. So for that reason, we decided I had tried at that stage unsuccessfully to get hold of anybody in the Eastern Cape in the post office to try and discuss the matter. So we decided that perhaps the best way to shine a light on this issue was to do a petition, which we then obviously did and submitted to your committee. Subsequent to that, Tommy van Rooyen from the Eastern Cape Post Office contacted me and set up a Zoom meeting with myself and one of his colleagues and him, and we chatted about the issues raised in the petition. Obviously, he then explained to me the issues around the money and how money has got to be ordered a month in advance for these outlying post office, and they can only be replenished once during a month and then once at the end of the month. And what happens is obviously that with SASSA determined they're going to do a whole series of back payments, and that money hasn't been accounted for in the planning phase. And that creates the issue about money running out. So what we decided then was that, so Tommy alerts me when any of the post offices are about to run out of money, and I then notify the councillors in that town and request that they then communicate that to the groups. So that's had a huge impact on the unhappiness around people arriving for their grants and discovering that the post office is out of money, because some days it's 5 or 6 days before there's money being replenished. And then this means at least that we're not creating unnecessary issues within the community. Obviously, we can't reach everybody. but it certainly has been one way in which we have mitigated against that problem. And then obviously I know they communicated with me that they'd done a spot check on the post office, and they had determined that everything was operating well and better. I have spoken to my councillor in that area, and she has said that so far we haven't had any complaints since the petition was submitted. And we did a media statement on this. There has been an improvement in what has happened in that post office, and I think it also has helped with us being able to notify them. One of the other issues that we have identified is that I've put in a question to ascertain the details of all the post offices in my constituency, but certainly the Jansenville Post Office and the Graaff-Reinet Post Office, which services a far bigger community, are both in privately owned buildings. Now, the Jansenville Post Office, to my knowledge, the post office is 3 months in arrears with its rental. The Graaff-Reinet Post Office, the post office is 14 months in arrears with its rental. They owe the owners of that building nearly R500,000. Now, obviously, the owners of the building are saying their only recourse at this stage might very well be just to lock the doors of the building. But we don't have an alternative for the people of our area. So in each town where a post office operates, we don't have a nearby alternative. Our towns are between 50 and 80 to 100 kilometers apart. And people, there's no ways they can travel there. So the threat of closure of the post office is obviously also something that's weighing on us quite heavily. So hopefully I'll have a full response from the Minister to my question. But at this stage, the Jansenville Post Office is in arrears, as far as I'm aware, for at least 3 to 4 months. So, as I say, I had good news and bad news, but I do believe that there are other ways that we can start trying to address the issues of money running out, and also that we need to be monitoring our outlying post offices more effectively to make sure that there isn't an opportunity for things like loan sharking and that to be taking place. But yeah, so at this stage, that's where we're at. As I've said, it is operating a bit better than it was, and I think that has, is due to the interventions by the Eastern Cape Department, the Eastern Cape guys. So yeah, but I have no doubt that the same sort of issues are happening in other post offices, and hopefully this raises some of the issues. I'd like to really thank you for the opportunity for me to present to you. It's not a long presentation. There's not too much to say, but I'm more than happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Graham. I just wanted to check before we engage this item. I just wanted to check if the Deputy Minister has been able now to connect, so that if not, we'll then ask the acting DG to just to overview and introduce the entity and whoever would be taking us through the presentation in response to the petition.
Not yet, Chair. The Deputy Minister has not been able to connect.
Okay. Can we then have yes, please.
Yes, good morning, Chair. I hope you are able to hear me.
Loud and clear, and we can see.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the department has taken note of the concerns that have been raised, which are obviously worrying. We believe that the post office has got a very strategic role in as far as ensuring that it provides services, especially in those remote and remote areas, as it has been alluded to. And therefore, Chair, we've had a discussion, continuous engagements with the post office on this particular matter. And in our engagements with them, I think as the presentation that will be deliberated or tabled by SAPO now at this platform, they have put in measures in terms of how to address the matter. And we note, obviously, that one of the biggest challenges, which SAPO is also trying to address at the moment, is then the need for us to address the financial constraints. So, Chair, I think as a department, what we have been doing is that we'll continue to engage and to make sure that SAPO still honors its obligations. As the department, we are committed to finding an optimal way to address the financial challenges at the entity. And we're working towards repositioning it to eventually function as a sustainable, productive, and an efficient entity, which is also very critical and strategic in terms of service delivery for the country. So, Chair, whilst the interventions are in progress and the entities, unfortunately, from time to time, they face the service delivery challenges and financial constraints, what we are then doing, and we note that this is having a negative impact in the communities, and we've continued to implore with SAPO and our engagement, continuous engagement with the CEO is to ensure that there should be less disruptiveness. So I would like to hand over, Chair, to the SAPO management. Also, I noted that let me also recognize the acting chair of SAPO, as well as the management, acting deputy chair of SAPO, who is in attendance, as well as then the management of SAPO, so that they can then take us through and address then what are then the interventions that they are going to put in place. Thank you very much.
Acting Deputy Chair, Mr. Chambos.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning, leadership of the department, as well as of SAPO. I trust my voice does project. I will be relying more on management on the operational parts of what is responsible for the situation in Jansenville, as well as Klipplaat. But however, for the benefit of membership at large, and particularly MP Graham-Maré, I would only like to highlight one part of her comments and her presentation, which is the threat of closure to both Jansenville as well as the Graafrenet post offices. The other parts, as I say, will be addressed more operationally in the presentation. And very, very briefly, and I'm happy to have this point even later and just indicated, the post office is really in a situation where financially it is in dire straits. Part of it can be argued, has been lack of efficiencies in the past, so it is a legacy issue. However, for the past 2-3 financial years, what has made the situation worse has been a lack of funding. I have illustrated elsewhere that when the majority of the membership of the board came on board, there had been an expectation of the funding, and without prior warning, the 2 cycles didn't deliver any funding. So that situation is blighting the post office at every corner. And the situation that is obtaining currently, both in Jansenville and elsewhere, Graaff-Reinet and so on, is replicated across, whether they go to Bloemfontein and so on. But as a result of that, the department has asked the post office to come up with a strategy to turn the post office around. Our gripe, I guess, or the gripe of the post office is that any strategy would require resourcing. And we trust and we hope, and our prayer is that this will be forthcoming soon rather than later. Post office is becoming unattractive, not only to the public and to stakeholders, but also to the post office membership itself. And we've seen a number of resignations, both of staff and board members. However, there is a determination on the part of both the board and management to turn things around. And lastly, this analogy has been illustrated on many platforms, that no matter how much determination there is, no matter how much effort is put into the turnaround, if there isn't an enabling resource to get things going, then it's going to get worse rather than better. And the illustration of, a car jalopy, a skorokoro, that requires attention. You can have the best driver, but if you do not have resources to buy parts and so on, it's not going to go too far. And similarly, and we had the portfolio committee engagement, not a portfolio committee, scope engagement just recently, who came in as well and outlined almost similarly some of the challenges that have been highlighted in the presentation by MP Graham-Maré. But at the end of it, after the presentation and discussion, they were able to sympathize with the headaches and actually went out of their way to indicate that normally they don't enter the fray of either mobilizing, lobbying for funding, but they really felt that there is a need for them to do so. And we trust that that sentiment and that intention of support will also transpose to the portfolio committee, because most of the problems are as a result of lack of funding. But I will leave it at that point for now, and maybe the CEO would like to orchestrate the responses through a presentation that has been specifically put together for discussing the issues and the petition. And on that score, thank you very much, Chair, as well as the entire membership of the meeting.
Good morning to the Honourable Chair of the committee and the Honourable members of the committee, the Acting Director General, as well as the colleagues from the department, as well as my own colleagues. I do also note that some of the board members are in attendance from SAPO, and of course the Acting Deputy Chair who's just spoken. My name is Nomkita Mona, and I will be responding to the presentation made by the Honourable Graham-Maré on the challenges that we faced in her area. I'd like to start off by just confirming that we have indeed paid the rental, and we paid the rental in full, and that there is no longer a threat of us being evicted from that post office. But also, even though we were aware of the issues, it did actually bring to the fore the challenges of the region, and it's important for us to
protect and also defend the issues so that we are able to give the services to the people in the region. And I think the demographics that were put for us in terms of how many people are in the area, but also how far the post offices are, those are things that we have in our information, but it was also good for the public to get the information. So one of the reasons that we have been, or the issues that we have been facing as the post office in the past is that the payment of the SRTs was something that was supposed to have been a short-term solution that was offered at the post offices. So even in the beginning, where we were given the task to pay, which we are willingly, doing it because we understand the relevance of the post office, not only in the rural areas, but also in every other area of this country, because it's important that people get access to communications, etc., and whatever we do in terms of the postal services. But what we also had been looking at, we'll just talk very briefly around the payment of SRTs, the plans that we put in place to mitigate the challenges that have been raised in the previous presentation. The petition that was very clearly demonstrated here by the Honourable Member, but also other regional interventions that we have put in place so that we could correct any of the concerns that were made. So just to reconfirm that we started paying the SRTs in May 2020. It was supposed to have been initially for a period of 3 months. We understand the requirement and the need for these SRTs to be done, and the post office being one with the footprint that is in every little city or town in this country was indeed a very important resource for the country to use so that we could at least reach those people. But also, I think it's important to note that in the Eastern Cape alone, we have paid cumulatively over 1.3 million people in terms of the beneficiaries since this type of grant was given. This is just the SRT. We're not talking about the old age grant and the pensions, etc. In terms of the rand value that has been paid in the Eastern Cape, it's over R1 billion. So it just shows the importance of the post office in those regions, but also in the economies of those localities. And it's very clear that if you're talking about 80% unemployment in an area, this kind of relief is quite required. And then in terms of the SRTs that we pay in all our branches in that region, the committee must please note we are focusing a lot on the region because the petition was very specific to the region. And we have 159 post offices where we pay these grants. And but also it was also done as a COVID relief grant, but also we therefore were not able to enter into long-term supplier contracts purely because it was supposed to be short-term. And that also has led into other issues where suppliers are not able to, supply us with what we need because the extensions have happened. We note as well the committee that the president has also extended the SRT grant for another year. We are gearing ourselves to be able to pay the beneficiaries as humanely as possible, because other issues that were raised here were issues around, people not being treated in the most humane way. So we are looking into those issues as well. The problems, as demonstrated in the petition as well, were issues around the depletion of cash, and we also call it a cash outage if the CIT has not been able to go to those areas. The other issue is around a difficulty in accurately predicting sometimes the beneficiary turnout, but also the issues around overcrowding in post offices. And some people go to the post offices even before they receive the SMS that says, we are paying the people who have the last 3 digits of your ID today. Because remember, even the cash must be ordered in that fashion. But because people are desperate, they need money, they don't wait for those SMSs, which we fully understand, but it also creates other issues in the area. Also, it's not possible for us to have the regular CIT, drop-offs for cash in the province. There are areas that we term or call dead areas because they have to be covered by ad hoc CIT services. And these ad hoc CIT services, which is cash in transit services, they actually cost 130,000 Rand a month just to get the cash to the destination. But also we've seen a huge increase in criminal attacks, in robberies, in housebreaking, where it comes to the post offices. We have had a number of our employees abducted from home, taken to the post office. They say, you are a branch manager, you must have the key, you must open so that we can get the money. So we have a number of those issues that we have to deal with. And most of our staff in those areas are on sick leave because of post-traumatic stress disorder. And those are things that we are dealing with at various opportunities. So I've basically spoken to this slide. It was just to ensure that the committee gets the information, but I've basically broken it down in the previous slide. So I won't spend too much time here, except to say at the bottom right, in terms of the guarding services that we sometimes make sure that we bring to the areas, but also we have to make sure that we strike a balance between cash levels in the branch, but also to be able to cater adequately for beneficiaries. So it is a problem, but we are always watching it. We are always looking at trends. We're always modeling it and making sure that there's sufficient money to pay those beneficiaries for that day. So just a background on the petition itself. It was communicated to our department, the Department of Communications, on the 7th of December last year. And also we did read in the Herald newspaper, which is a regional newspaper in the Eastern Cape, mostly in the Nelson Mandela side, Sarabatman area. And it was on the 9th of December, which the honorable member has also mentioned that they took it to the media. And the management team of the SAPO Eastern Cape then made contact with the honorable Graham-Maré, and there was a virtual meeting held with themselves, and they then threshed out a number of issues, one of which was to set up a WhatsApp group so that there's at least a free flow of information between our people as well as the community. So I'm quite happy as well to hear that the honorable member Graham-Maré has said there has been an improvement, because we have made sure that that area is being monitored. We've put in place all the plans that we had agreed upon, and it's being continuously monitored. I must also state that as well, the issues that were raised in terms of the allegations against the branch manager and the family, etc., are being looked into by our internal security and investigations team, so that we can ensure that if those issues are happening, they are completely unacceptable and they do need to stop, and we need to take the necessary actions to make sure that consequences are done. In terms of the issues of cash depletion and what we call cash outage as well, we are now monitoring this a lot more, ensuring that we don't disadvantage the communities who are supposed to get this money from us. I have mentioned that there is a WhatsApp group between our employees at SAPO as well as the councillors, so that there's at least some kind of communication that goes through. There was an issue around, in some of our branches, you do find that it becomes a one-man branch, so to speak. So because this was one such branch, we have now moved another additional staff member from an area nearby. So we've transferred that person so that they can also now work from that branch, so that there's issues around relief. If the one is not there, there's always someone to to deal with the public. We did do a sting operation on the 21st of January, and at that time, things were seen to be going well. As I say, in the background, we are going to be continuously monitoring, and we have put the area manager onto this issue as well, so that he himself can also monitor the branch. That would be the end of the presentation in terms of us responding directly to the petition chair. But I think our acting deputy chair of the board has put in place, in terms of the background, what the issues are. And I think it's important for us to note that the support challenges that we are facing today do have a long history. They have been coming a long time. But I must say that what we've done in the last 10 months to 11 months now, we have been very specific in terms of how it is that we are, managing the business. There is a very strong, drive towards cost containment, firstly, but we also know that we are not going to change the fortunes of the post office just by saving costs. So it is very important for us to get new revenue, and that is why the strategy that we've put in front of the department, and it is called the Post Office of Tomorrow, has elements of initiatives that will change the face of the post office as soon as we implement them. However, as the chair has mentioned, some of those will have a dependency of funding. But we also are saying, equally as the post office, it's important for us to be treated and also run like a business. Hence these revenue generation or generating initiatives that we've put in place there. And we know that once we go through or beyond the hurdle, which is currently the huge debt that we owe, which is historical. It has been happening over a long period of time. As soon as we get through that, we should be able to get to the level. So the last comment I'd like to make, Chair, is that we have then, from a financial perspective, really gone through the lists of people who owe us, who we owe money to, and we have been paying. I mean, we're also pleased to say that we took a decision not to owe municipalities any money in terms of the money that they do for utilities, etc. So from about November last year, we started paying municipalities, as a result of which we are now sitting at current for all the municipal bills, and this is countrywide. We've also focused a lot on the smaller and oldest debt, so that whenever there's a little bit of money within the post office, we have been trying to liquidate and pay off those debts, and that's a process that we are also going to continue to do together with all our landlords, because our landlords are partners of the post office. Most of them have been really patient with us, and some of us have lost their patience and they do kick us out. But whenever we can negotiate, Chair, we do that. And I'd like to end this here, because the focus of this meeting was particularly to deal with the petition. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, that concludes then our presentation. I'd like to hand back to you and the honourable members. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting TG, and the support team is led by the Acting Deputy Chair, Mr. Machombozi, and the CEO, Ms. Mona. We will now, honourable members, open up an opportunity for you to engage with the presentation, whether in the form of trying to get clarities, as well as general contribution on the matter. May I then check if there are members who would want to speak at this point?
Ms. Majosi, Chairperson.
I see the Honourable Majosi. May I just check if there are other members? Let's take Honorable Machozi for now. Please, Honorable Machozi, you are recognized. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, and also the management from SAPO and the Department of Communications. No, mine will be two chairperson. Firstly, is to welcome the presentation that we have received from SAPO, and this time after the presentation, not holding our heads and saying, oh, what is happening with this entity, but having that hope that SAPO is at least it's coming back, and we can hear from the presentation that they are trying by all means to manage their accounts and also the performance of SAPO in different locations. We welcome that, and we are glad to see that at least now there's leadership in SAPO, and we are able to move forward. But I'm not sure, Chairperson, because I heard you saying the presentation from the acting deputy chairperson. I'm not sure what is happening with the board of SAPO and also the management. Maybe they could tell us whether are we still fine in terms of leadership there, or maybe they've reached each course and now they'll have to again reappoint board members, or maybe it's just a stand-in for the members that are not here of the board, so that we understand that it is not because of there's no leadership in SAPO, but maybe they are not available today. And also, I don't know, maybe it is me because of I have a problem of network. I'm not sure what is happening because there's no load shedding in my area, but also the fact that I did not see any financial part of the presentation. I did not see it. I'm not sure whether maybe it's me or what is happening, but maybe if we would have been also placed on that to say these are the finances of SAPO, so that we know where we are at this present moment, and then we will be able to move forward. But I'm glad with the presentations that we have received today, that at least SAPO is showing that there is a way forward indeed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Machozi. I just check if there are other members who would want to contribute on the item.
Yes, Chair.
Honorable Kumbu, you are recognized. You can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the presentation. Chairperson, just only one thing. I just want to check whether it was only one person who was operating in that post office prior or before the transfer of the other staff member, or one staff member from another post office. Just want to be clear on the point.
Thank you, Honorable Kumbu. Honorable Kubega.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. Let me take this opportunity to greet all the members and the officials who are present here. And also let me thank MP Graham for her presentation on the side of the committee, just to present and to raise all those issues that she was presenting to us. But also let me say, I'm convinced, because before it was as if in these challenges that they were presenting on the side of SAPO, there is nothing that is happening, but I'm happy because right now we are listening to the MP, at least as she's presenting, to say it shows that there is those engagements that it's happening between them and the people who are responsible for the post office of Jansenville and Klipplaat, as she was explaining. And also, let me say, I'm convinced now to say on the side of the CEO, as she has tried to give us the mitigation side, to say what are they trying to do in order to overcome all those challenges that the MP has been presented to them. So it shows that there is now a working relations in order to resolve all those challenges, as they've managed to even have the meeting, even with the councillor of the area, just to continue to see how best they can have the answers to attend those challenges that Ms. Graham was presenting. So I'm saying also thanks, but now CEO can just continue to make a follow-up on the side of that manager, as they were presenting, to say it's still allegations. So if and only if on the side of the investigation can continue in order that finally you can hear, because as MP, she's saying it's allegations. It needs to be verified in order that resolutions must be found, because indeed it can be the issue of dealing with your personal matters actually in the post office, where it is a public area. So I'm saying, but it's clear that on the side of the challenges, you can hear as they are raising, and the deputy chair also is raising, to say it is one of the legacy things that affect, which means the post office there. So also on our side, we will need to see how best can we assist, because also on the side of the funding, if it means they can be assisted also, it will be difficult on the side of the post office to turn around the situation. But I'm happy because other things, as they are trying to say, they are trying to close the gaps with those challenges that they were having. But at the end of the day, the issue is a legacy issue that needs funding, and we need also to see how best. So I'm positively to say maybe tomorrow, after the budget, we can maybe hear a positive thing that maybe can assist the side of SAPO in order that they can manage to achieve their goal, as they were trying to say, maybe on the side of the turnaround strategy, if they can be assisted indeed with the issue of funding, maybe things will be turned better on that side. So let me just pause there. I will come in maybe in the second round. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kubeka. I take it that Honorable Machos, it is your hand is the one that I had already recognized and allowed.
Yes, Chair, the legacy hand. I'll take it.
So let's address then the legacy issue by taking the hand down. Thank you. I do recognize that the Deputy Minister has been able to finally connect and is on the platform. The overview Deputy Minister was done by the acting DG. We are now at the point where there would be a response to some direct questions and comments made. You'll also have an opportunity to give any other response or clarity in as far as how you are handling the post office matter. But for now, I will just check from the department, the entity, if there are responses to direct questions that would have been asked. I'll be guided by ourselves, including the acting deputy chair of SAPO, on how you would want to spread the responses. Honorable Majosi has raised some points. Honorable Kumbo, I think, was a straightforward question, as well as Honorable Kubeka, after comments, there's also been a question in that way. Would then give to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the most straightforward questions will be attended to by the CEO and her team. And I don't know whether the Deputy Minister was in already when the question was asked around the leadership of the board and its membership, and maybe he would be the one that would deal with that question, Deputy Minister. But after the other questions would have been attended. The question was asked, Deputy Minister, around the profile in terms of membership of the board leadership of the post office, which is what I know you are working on in the department. So without much then ado on that score, the CEO, I think, will attend to the questions raised by Honorable Kumbu, and also in part the questions raised by Honorable Majosi in relation to the financial part of the presentation. But I think I could take the opportunity even before the CEO comes on, because I know that the CEO came in long after the first portfolio committee that was held in 2021. I'm merely mentioning that to indicate that the chair of the committee at that time and a semblance of a turnaround strategy was also indicated at that meeting. But he ended the meeting by indicating the need for a continued conversation between the entity, the department, and the portfolio committee in order to keep the committee members abreast with the developments and not only wait until there are issues to be raised. And one wishes to remember that and perhaps to get guidance on how that could be followed up. But that is prompted by the question asked by Honorable Majosi around what you termed the financial part of the presentation. It's an indication perhaps of a need for the committee to be taken through at some point, and maybe then this channel that was indicated would be the one in terms of the financial performance of the entity in its entirety, which was not necessarily incorporated in the preparations for this presentation, as it was more specific to the post office area, in the area of Jansenville. So, CEO, we might wish to have a bite at that, and I'm certain then that Deputy Minister will be able to address the question around the leadership and vacancies in the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Honourable Majosi, yes, it's a critical question on leadership within the executives. We have seen over the past couple of years an exodus out of the post office of senior qualified executives, and we are sitting at the top level with actually just myself being the CEO, who has a contract that is to be the group CEO of SAPO. The other executives are in acting positions. So it is important and it's imperative for us to start the recruitment process to enable us to be able to do the work that is required. And we could not do that in the last 10 months or so that I have joined SAPO, purely because of financial difficulties, where we were looking around and saying, well, how are we even going to pay these salaries? But we also equally realize and understand that it actually is a cycle, that if you do not have the correct and the relevant skills in the areas that you need to have, it will affect your finances. So if I make an example, if we do not have a commercial director, somebody who drives, the commercial element, where we are looking for new revenue to come in, that's going to become an issue. As the new strategy talks to us becoming a logistics and a warehousing hub, we are going to need people who have the requisite experience in logistics. And therefore, we need to push as much as possible to be able to do that. So that is something we have presented to the board, and the board is in agreement that there are some critical skills that we do need to that we do need to bring on board. And that's the process within which we're working currently. With respect to the financial part of the presentation, the CFO will take us through a very short presentation that we have so that we can put the committee, on the same page as we are. I think it's a critical piece of information that we need to put in front of the committee so that they understand. So at the end of the answering of this round, Chair, I would propose that we take that financial presentation so that the next round can also incorporate any questions around finances. But I will leave that to you, Chair. Yes, Honorable Gumbu, yes, there was only one staff member, which explains why it is that they would close the office and be not available at certain times. Perhaps they needed to go and do some critical things around. So we do have a number of offices who are we call them like they have a single staff member. It's mostly in the small rural towns that are far-flung because they had not been that busy. So that system used to actually work. However, because of the new SRD dynamic that it has brought in, then there was also a level of being busy, and therefore we have had to revise that strategy and be able to transfer people. But the challenge that we sit with, especially in the Eastern Cape, our staff members are reluctant to be transferred to these small, far-flung areas, and that becomes an issue. But we have successfully managed to move another staff member to go and join the branch manager there. There is also an area manager who then looks after the whole area. With regards to the questions and comments raised by the Honorable Kubeka, we are definitely going to be continuing with our investigation on the allegations, because they are quite serious, and we like to look at ourselves as an organization that is based on ethics and also morality, etc. So we cannot then allow rogue elements within or to abuse the resources of the post office. But also, this new post office that we are building now is one that is obsessed with the customer, because we also believe that we only exist for the customer to ensure that we serve as much as possible. So that's the kind of culture that we are bringing into the organization. The last comment was around funding. Even though we have a strategy that will be able to stand on its own 2 feet, but because we're not starting at zero, we're starting at minus X billion that we owe people to be able to pay them. So we are going to require funding. So funding and support is going to be very important for us, because we do need to deal with the historical debt. It's money that we owe, but more importantly, the kind of funding we're looking for, we are very clear that we will use the bulk of it in investing in the new initiatives, which would then turn the entity towards sustainability. So we're not going to just take whatever funding that we may get and just go and liquidate the debt and then we're back to square one. It's important for us that we ensure that there's continuity. Yes, we will deal with some of the debt going into the past. So, Chair, I would like to leave it at that and invite the acting CFO, Mr. Lenny Govender, to take us through the financial status of the company. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. Can I go ahead, Chair?
I just wanted to check the Deputy Minister first, if he will be coming in before I give guidance on the matter raised.
Thank you very much, Chair. My apologies, Chair. I'm struggling here where I am. I'm even afraid to open the video because it might collapse my connectivity. I don't know whether
but you can hear it. It's not open.
No, thank you very much, Chair. And my apologies. I would have liked to have started with the meeting. I believe that we were well represented here by the DG, and thanks to her for introducing the subject matter. Chair, I think the CEO, I think I caught up with the meeting when the CEO was on the platform, and I think she did present the issues at SAPO, and she also responded to the 2 questions that were raised. On our part, Chair, I think we just wish to thank the committee for the continued engagement that we're having with yourself, but also to indicate that I think at an appropriate time, we will come back and present the new strategy that we have developed together with the board and the entity. So we'll come back and present a strategy. But I think much hope that we are having, Chair, for now rests with the announcements that are going to be made tomorrow as part of the budget speech by the Minister of Finance. But I think just safe to say that we are in a very difficult space in terms of the finances of the organization. We are trying all our best to try and make sure that we turn around the entity. We make sure that there is sufficient funding available to be able to continue to run the entity as a going concern. But for now, Chair, I don't think that there's much that we can say. I think we have been covered by the acting DG when she made an overview on behalf of ourselves as the department. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I've tried to give you space to speak because, as you say, may also start in the other meeting. I just wanted to check honorable members before we allow the CFO. The item before us relates to a petition from Honorable Graham-Maré, which has been responded to, and that petition is quite specific about a situation in a particular post office. And therefore, she would have seen a bit of improvement, but there are also other things that still need attention, which is something similar to what is experienced elsewhere. So I just wanted us to have that understanding first and foremost, and that we still have a presentation that we need from SAPO as per the agreement we had with the minister when the minister requested this committee to put the matters of SAPO, its finances and turnaround strategy aside, that they go and work on that and come back to the committee. I think that's something I thought we could come back to it having completed the item that we were to deal with. That's more from the point of the committee. I don't want us to have a discussion that is all over, but focused so that we can complete the item as referred to the committee through the ATC. So I see the Deputy Minister wants to come back before we can agree on how we move forward. Deputy Minister?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, my apologies. There was a question about the vacancies in the board, which unfortunately I missed that question. Maybe just to say to honorable members that we do have vacancies in the board. We have received about 3 or 4 resignations. So we are in the process of filling those vacancies. We've just gone out about a week or so ago to invite South Africans who wishes to be part of the board to apply. So the minister has taken a view that instead of filling in the vacancies of the chairperson, because we do have a vacancy there, there was an acting chairperson who also unfortunately resigned. So instead of, and of course we've got an acting deputy chair who's ably leading the board as we are now. So the minister has taken a view that instead of filling those vacancies, we should allow the process of applications, and then we should fill all the vacancies at once, and of course she will then appoint the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the board. Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for that.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. But as I said, honorable members, maybe just for us to complete the point on the matter that is specific and before us, just to check if there are follow-up questions, but also for Honorable Graham-Maré to just also make comments on the responses that have been received from the ministry, the department, and the entity itself based on a petition. Of course, we may want, as the committee, to have another discussion post the budget speech, where SAPO would still need to come before us, of course, led by the ministry, in particular, look at the turnaround strategy and how that is funded. And I'm saying this because we have come to a conclusion long ago that it would not matter which board, which management you put in SAPO, which strategy you put, but it's quite clear you would need to inject funding. And the understanding was that we should not throw money to problems because the problems will always be there. But we should be throwing the money to the solutions to those problems so that at a particular point we can get away from bailouts or recapitalization, in whatever way you are comfortable to call it. But that these entities can stand on their own. And I think that needs a thorough discussion by the committee with the ministry present. In this instance, I'm referring to the minister and deputy minister, as well as the entity, right? So I would want to roll that we just get to focus on at least the part of the petition first. And then in the summary, we can then agree on how we are going to handle the other matters that relate to SAP. May I just check firstly, if there are honorable members who would want to make follow-ups if their questions would have not been responded to properly on the matter at hand. And if not, maybe also allow Honorable Graham-Maré just to also have comments as the person who has put up the petition on behalf of the constituency. Ajira, is there any hand that I do not see from other members? Okay, we'll take Honorable Matuzi, and then we will then get to Honorable Graham-Maré. Honorable Matuzi.
No, thank you, Chairperson. It's not that there's a question that has not been answered from my side, but also to say that it must be highlighted then by the Deputy Minister, greetings to the Deputy Minister as well, that even in the management, Chairperson, for accountability's sake and maybe for also the question that has been raised about funding and so forth, when people are in positions, we are able to then bring them onto the accounting side, and also they take responsibility of whatever that happens in the entity. So I think also in the management, while there is acting CFO and so forth, we must also look at that organogram, Chairperson, and make sure that we fill in those positions that we need to fill in and get a stable organization that will be able then to foresee that the programs and the performance of SAPO is taken care of. I think those concerns, I hear that the board, the part of the board has been addressed, but also in the management with the acting positions that are there, can we at least fill in those so that we are able to move forward with an organogram that is approved? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Machozo. May I then take Honorable Graham-Maré?
Chairperson, firstly, I'd really like to once again thank you very, very much for the opportunity to present to your committee today. It's been an absolute pleasure engaging with everybody. And I would like to thank the Post Office for their response to our petition and the feedback provided today. There are places like Klipplaat and Rietbron and Waterford. Those are the sort of places that are very easily forgotten about, where people are just left with nothing and no resources. So I'm truly appreciative of the attention that's been given to this petition and for the interventions that have been brought in by the Post Office to address the concerns that were raised in the petition. And also for the willingness of the Post Office to look at engagements, ongoing engagements, so that we can keep on working together for the benefit of our community. As I said, the SRD grant is not going away anytime soon, and we need to be looking at ways to make this a humane experience and a dignified experience for the people that are applying for grants. And I think they are working very well towards that. So once again, from my side, obviously we'll be monitoring what's happening in our post offices, but I have that line of communication open, which has made a world of difference in order for us to address any of the concerns immediately and to get issues resolved as quickly as possible. So once again, from my side, I'd like to wish the post office the best of luck. It's such an intrinsic part of our society, of our country. And I know they've been beset by so many problems. COVID hasn't helped. But just know that we're holding thumbs and hoping that the new CEO and the new board are in a position to turn this entity around. It's a very important entity. I spoke to somebody on a plane last night, an American fellow, who said that he had been battling to find a post office to buy a stamp. He wanted to take a stamp back to America with him. So it's just something to bear in mind that sometimes it's difficult. We forget what the post office started as. But from my side, thank you very much to you, Chair, to your committee, to your outstanding secretariat, and to the post office for the hard work that's gone into addressing my concerns. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Honorable Graham-Maré. And in that score, honorable members, I think the other part raised by Honorable Machozi can still be responded to, as would be thoroughly dealing with the matter that would be coming before us. But as far as the item on the petition, we really appreciate that indeed, with the referral that has been made, it just highlights the point that we need to do more. And I think the post office and the department assist with that. And I must say, Honorable Graham-Maré, the complaints about the post office are received from different constituencies. And sometimes members of the committee themselves are called in individually. I'm sure they would attest to that. And sometimes those problems would need urgent attention. And as part of doing our oversight work, would engage with the ministry and the post office, because some of those could not wait until a hearing is held or we get a presentation like it has happened today. I can count a number of MPs who serve their constituencies. I remember a time when Honorable Ramadwa in Toyando experienced the same with many rural people queuing, and it was raining at the time, and the machines were not working to help the people, and we had to intervene because there was a payment issue also at the time. And I must say that both the ministry, the board, and the management and SAPO responded positively, working with other partners to try and resolve the problem. I think in the Eastern Cape, again, we have an example of Honorable Lenzana, who also presented his constituency well. I think it was also an SRT payment closure of the post office when people are queuing there in numbers. And I think the reaction from the ministry, the department, and SAPO was also swift in that regard. I'm raising this point so that it's also understood that even the committee itself is seized with these challenges, hence would want to look at lasting solutions to the problems, because the piecemeal approach reacting on a particular specific matter at a time may not resolve all the problems we are faced with. And we are raising this point purely on the same sentiments of shared with us, the importance of the post office as a first point of entry to government services in most of the areas that are more remote I usually say that in the urban spaces, given diversity that's there, people have got access to other services that they would use, whether you talk connectivity and so on. But with the rural towns and so on, they still rely more in terms of most of government services from the post office, and we dare not make it to fail. We have to work together that services can get to our people. On matters that are outstanding, like the investigations or allegations made, I think there's commitment there that you would be able to get feedback on that, whether it is in the form of writing that the matter has been investigated and this is the outcome, and the same would come to the portfolio committee. So once again, thanks for also making time to raise matters on behalf of your constituency. And surely if we work together to best represent our people, there would be solutions to their problems working with them. Thank you, Ms. Graham-Maré, Honorable Member. We will then release you, I think, at this point, if you want to, but for the other items, they're merely that of the committee, as well as how we would want to deal with the next appearance of SAPO before the committee. Thank you. You can leave. Thank you. So as we allow Honorable Graham-Maré to leave, I just wanted to come back to this point, Honorable Members, because it has been raised by also the Deputy Chair, Acting Deputy Chair. I hope the Deputy Minister is still with us, but if he has left, surely the department through the Acting DG will relate this and the PLOs. Okay, I see he's still here. I think, Honorable Members, that the only reason I've tried to get us to focus on the petition, I just wanted us that we complete the part of the petition so that our resolve on what needs to happen going forward is not diluted with the resolution of a specific matter. And that's the reason I've also tried to stop any presentation that talks to the finances which come as a result of a question. And these are the reasons. We have, as the committee, looked at different Auditor General reports of SAPO. Of course, we understand that they've also been submitted very late, and we know that it is because of capacity problems and that. And then there was a commitment that we should not schedule SAPO because at the time we had scheduled a number of meetings so that we are able to talk to this matter. We have been requested, which the committee acceded to, that we do not engage the matter until the ministry works with SAPO and National Treasury to look at the turnaround strategy, which, as I said, as the committee were convinced, it will not work out unless you put money to it. And we understood that we're not putting the money to the problems, but to the solutions that they would put up in the turnaround strategy. And we have not received that report. And we take it that it's been work in progress and waiting to hear whether there would be any indication of whether this would be supported based on the turnaround strategy that has been put forward. And we've been made to understand before, honorable members, that part of the problem is that there have been many other turnaround strategies before, and they could not be implemented because there were turnaround strategies before when there was leadership at the time. which were funded through those bailouts or recapitalization, and the intended results were not seen, or accountability thereof. So I think that then when we are to deal with the matter thoroughly, we should also understand that was said to be turnaround strategy at the time, the allocations that were made, and what could have been the results. And if there were no results, what do investigations say would have been the problems? So as to learn from that, that we don't submit turnaround strategies that we do not mean, and then put money to those, and you still get back to us for bailouts. This would have been the approach of this committee, even when we're dealing with the SABC bailout, that we shouldn't be having them coming back again asking for a bailout. They have to make sure that the strategy to turn around the SABC, it works such that the SABC is able to sustain itself going forward. So the same here. So I want to guide the meeting in this score, that actually we do not take another presentation which we already know on SAPO owing creditors and owing third parties that they may have not been paid. I'm sure those of you would remember the late Honorable Mackenzie used to ask the question, are you going to be able to pay next month? So I'm just saying we know the problems, but we need solutions to the problems. And that's what the turnaround strategy should be about. And if need be, honorable members, because when we adopted the program, we agreed that it's a living document. And if there are matters of urgency that needs to come before us, we may amend the program. I suggest that we have an item that's really about the turnaround strategy and the funding thereof of SAPO in a way that makes it to be the entity that services our people and what they call the future post office. So we really need to know that ourselves at the committee, so that when we do oversight, we know what we're dealing with. So Deputy Minister, you may want probably to also come in on that, because surely you do know where you are in terms of that turnaround strategy, in terms of the part that relates to funding and so on. But my suggestion was that, honorable members, we do not handle it now. We complete the item on the petition, but have a proper item that comes before the committee, which could be circulated on time, so that we read, we apply our minds on it, and prepare better for a proper discussion. So that's what I want to put forward, honorable members. But as I say, maybe the Deputy Minister can just come in to just indicate their readiness, so that we can look at the program, amend it if need be, and bring a session with SAPO even more forward than we would have looked at it. Deputy Minister, I'm not sure if you want to comment at this point.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Well, thank you very much for the points that you raised, and Honorable Majosi, I think, as well. Would be very glad, Chair, to come back and brief yourself on the situation currently with regard to the finances, with regard to the post office, because it's a necessary briefing that we need to give you, Chair, because it concerns the future of the post office as we know it today. I'm sure you have been interacting with a number of reports in the past, before even our time when we joined yourself in August last year. And I'm sure you're aware of the dire situation that the post office is facing currently. We are all hoping, Chair, that the pronouncements that are going to be made tomorrow will be very positive with regard to the future situation of the post office. Because without getting into the details of what you are requesting, just to be very frank and honest with yourself, Chair, that the entity as you know it today is really facing serious difficulties financially. And we are looking forward to Treasury to helping us to turn around the situation. I can confirm that the department working together with the post office and the board of the post office, we have finalized and we have adopted a new strategy in terms of turning around the post office, which we're calling it the Post Office of Tomorrow, which would be very glad, Chair, to come back to yourself and to brief you about the details of the strategy. Probably in the not so foreseeable future, so probably in the next coming weeks during this parliamentary term, we can come back and brief you about that. But we can confirm that the board, the post office, the board, and ourselves in the department, we have finalized a strategy, which we think that we can turn around the post office. But as I said, all of this is going to be dependent on the funding that will be pronounced tomorrow in the budget. We remain hopeful, Chair, that Treasury is going to appreciate the kind of situation that the post office finds itself. Very serious difficulties, Chair, you know. I'm sure you might have seen movements around where honorable members stay and where I stay. Just yesterday, I went to one of the post office next to my area, only to find that it has been closed. So this might be the situation across the country. So, Chair, we will really appreciate an opportunity for us to come and brief you and engage with yourself about what we think that can work in terms of turning around the post office. But what we can leave you with is that we must all be hopeful that we receive something from Treasury so that we can be able to maintain the post office as a going concern. With regard to the question by Honorable Majosi, I think part of the turnaround is to look at the organizational architecture of the post office. And we don't want to fill in the vacancies that are there in the executive management, because we think that we need to align the organizational structure with a new strategy that has been developed, so that as we fill in those positions, it's in line with what we think that should happen going forward. So, yeah, there has been a delay in filling of the vacancies, especially in the executive management, because we would like the entity to align the structure with the strategy that has been recently developed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I think we should then agree, honorable members, that the item before us has been dealt with, but we've further agreed to have a meeting with the SAPO. We'll just get into the program, look to some amendments to it, to allow SAPO to come back still in this term to present to us that strategy, and at least that would be post the budget speech by the finance minister. So we'll be at least engaging with that on the background. So if we so agree, honorable members, I would want us to really look at the other item, which is looking at the minutes of previous meetings, so that they are approved and that decisions that are captured there at least are able to be taken forward. Hajira, I understand that we are dealing with the minutes, the actual report, in particular on the SITA one that we dealt with, would still come as a separate report. But for today, we deal with just the minutes.
That's correct, Chair. We're just dealing with the minutes of the 7th of December, which is outstanding. And then the 15th of February, just to indicate who was present. And the report will be adopted next week, Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted that clarity. So, honorable members, we will now take the minutes of the 7th. But as it is the case, for those that may want to leave from the department and the entity, as this is just a matter for committee members, they are free to leave the platform to attend to other engagements that may be there. Otherwise, you can still stay if you want to. We are now on the minutes of the 7th. You can scroll.
Chairperson, I have my hand up.
That Honorable Mbele.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. It's just one typo gremlin that I think crept in, which is on page 2 of the 7 December minutes. My surname is misspelt in all instances relating to all the dates of the minutes that we discussed. There's an L between the H and the E that shouldn't be there, but that's all that I spotted previously.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Can we proceed? If there are no further points to raise there or corrections, can I then have a formal mover and seconder for adoption of the minutes of the 7th December?
Chairperson Mbele here, I'm happy to move for adoption.
Honorable Mbele moves. Can I get a seconder?
Chairperson, I second.
Honorable Mtembu, seconds. Then that takes us to the next set of minutes, the minutes of the 15th of February. With that understanding, honorable members, that the actual report on SITA will then come as a separate one for submission to the House. I don't see any hand on my side. If there is no correction to be made, may I also get a formal mover and seconder.
Chairperson, happy to move for adoption as well here.
Honorable Mbele moves. Can I get
I second, Chairperson.
seconder? Honorable Machosa seconds, and the minutes are adopted. So, Honorable Kubeka, you wanted to make a correction?
No, Chair, I was going to second, but already Comrade Honorable Machos has already seconded, Chair.
Yeah, she made a comment only in the AFP. So thank you, Honorable Kubeka. So the minutes are agreed to, and I take it that Ajira, those were the two.
That's correct, Chair.
And that represents the last item.
That's the last item, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members, I take it that we would indeed formally welcome the other members of the committee from the Democratic Alliance in our next meeting. Surely the formalities would have been done. But I take it that having observed the way we engage in the committee, they would also feel at home when we welcome them, and that they would easily fit in the discussions that would follow in that scope. So we'll do that formalization probably in the next meeting. Otherwise, I must take this opportunity, honorable members, to thank you for staying the course up until now without problems of losing connectivity completely, because sometimes it does happen. And when it happens with communications, you know what that means, because others are also looking at us to help South Africa to be fully connected. So it should be a reminder of our oversight work at all times. But I must really thank you as a team that we can still have the energy to ensure that those that need to be held accountable, we do that without fear or favor as true representatives of the people of South Africa, as parliamentarians. That's our call. So represent the people of the country. And we do this at all times in this committee without looking at party lines, but really look at ourselves as a collective team that South Africans have sent to the parliament to serve them. That's what we've been doing throughout. So let's keep that. Of course, until we meet again, honorable members, the business for the meeting has been completed, and this meeting stays adjourned until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. What were you saying about the IFP? I'm Kai.
I was just saying you may be a comrade in the IFP.
Recording stopped.
I'm good, Mamupega Gunjani.
Niyaphila hle asabonani man.
Hey, she has this day. Yapeta inkinga nje.
Thank you.
Alright, nyabonga.